Step 8, the final chapter, the important discipline of fasting. The important discipline of fasting. I know many of you are excited about this chapter. And again, I'm going through my book, What Works When Diets Don't, putting it on Audible and also making some podcasts. The other one that will go along with this chapter is feasting and fasting. What works, what doesn't, and why feasting and fasting. It's a book on fasting that I wrote, fairly short. And all these are available, of course, where books are available, but they are available on the church website, westsidechristianfellowship.org, as a free download. So you can read these books right now. After this, you just go on, log in and start your journey. So let's talk about this topic. I've also got some notes here that I made earlier in the month to try to convey this topic a little bit better, because what I'm going to read was taken from my book, Feasting and Fasting, which I think was released, I don't know how many years ago now, probably about 5 years ago or 6 years ago. And there's, of course, there's been some changes, updates, and different things. But let me say this about this topic of fasting. One reason it's so confusing is because the way the body works is so, they call intricate, right? It's just the details. No matter who you listen to, these experts, are amazing, from Walter Longo to Peter Attia, to other fasting experts on this topic. And the reason it's tough is because what they call gene expression, the way your genes express themselves. So what might work good for someone in a particular day and age might not work as well for someone else. And so that's why you have all the different, topics on fasting, OMAD, 1 meal a day, pros and cons to that, high carb, low calorie, or high protein, low calorie. And they all have benefits because they are getting your caloric range down. So when we talk about fasting, though, I think it's important to note it really depends on what you're trying to do, because the Bible's clear that fasting, actually the word means to shut, or actually to cover the mouth. So I'm covering my mouth here, and that means nothing comes in. And that is biblical fasting. So if you want to fast, biblically speaking, it'd be drinking water. And of course, there's some wisdom needed. I went through that in my book on fasting, different tips and things you can use. If you want to take a multivitamin or mineral, if you want to take some other supplements such as magnesium, potassium, and the other trace minerals, but you have to be careful because you want to, overload on those. Your body is well aware of what it needs, and it's able to get vitamin and mineral storages from other areas of the body. Same with the trace minerals, and so it depends. I mean, that's why we could write, I guess, each chapter on all these different fasts. So you have to find out what you want to do. And then, how, again, gene expression, what the needs are. So let's for example, the fasting mimicking diet, most have it as whole plant-based, low calorie, very high carbohydrates. I think only 10% protein. But the thought behind it is they're trying to restrain the activation of mTOR. And I've been talking about that. Won't go into a lot of details. Mammalian target of rapamycin, which this area of the cell, or how it affects the cells for longevity. It appears that the more mTOR, along with insulin-like growth factor 1, they work together to, increase the size of cells and different things, but they also, many believe, work against longevity. So you don't want the mTOR high all the time, or the IGF-1, especially in the case of cancer and different things. So that's why they go low, high carbs, especially if you're trying to get the body clean and reset. But then there's others who recommend, 500-600 calories, mainly high protein. And I don't know if you've ever tried 600-700 calories a day, 800 on some of these diets, but it's no joke. It's hard. I almost prefer water fasting once you get through a couple days, because that gnawing hunger isn't there. But also you can go into ketosis on 500 calories of mainly higher protein. What I mean by that is probably 60% protein. And their thought behind that type of diet is you're preserving the muscle. if you're getting enough protein in, right around 800 calories is enough to at least preserve or maybe lose a little bit of muscle, but not much at all compared to, other types of fasting, water fasting. But even with water fasting, your body goes into protein sparing mode. So, in the future, I think a lot of these people will be maybe changing their opinion, changing their insight. The first sin in the Bible was the violation of a dietary restriction. Eve with the fruit, or Adam with the fruit as well. And the first sin in the Bible was a violation of a dietary restriction. That's why fasting is so important. Nahum Sarna said, unrestricted freedom does not exist. Man is called upon by God to exercise restraint and self-discipline in the gratification of his appetites. And so fasting is such a broad topic, and that's why there's different fasts. It depends what your goals are. It depends what God's put on your heart. The Daniel eating program's good. OMAD, just that one meal a day. I tried that yesterday, actually, because I knew I was going to be recording this, and I made it till about 3 o'clock or so. But then I ate a lot between 3 and 7. So I'm not sure that was real productive. Felt pretty good, though, to go the whole day. And the reason diet is so important in fasting, think about this. Let's take 500 calories, for example. You go on a walk, you walk hour and a half to burn 500 calories. Well, you can ruin that walk in about 2 minutes with 500 calories of the wrong foods at the wrong time. So, fasting is an important discipline spiritually and physically. But what will really help is to focus on the why. Focus on the why. Lord, here's what I'm going to try. I'd like to just do water only, but I'm going to have a little bit of fruit juice if I need it. Or I might have a little bit of just some chicken and salad, just to maintain some protein. I've got to work today. What do you feel good about? I mean, for me, having done all different types, water fasting is by far, it was challenging for sure, but then the benefits were pretty well. I mean, your weight loss is dropping, of course, which isn't the goal. And I did it's on Amazon Prime. I think it's called One Pastor's 40-day journey, fasting. And it was mainly water for 40 days. Obviously I'd have some bone broth, a little bit of juice if I had to get through a Sunday where I preached 3 times. And, but man, it was just, there were some times that were amazing and there are other times that were amazingly challenging. So that's what I would do. I would find out what kind of fast, for how long, and then the why. Why am I doing this? So prodigal sons, spouses that need to come to the Lord, you name it. So many, and I think it's okay to fast for health. I think it's okay to say, Lord, I'm 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. I'm starting to feel these metabolic conditions, type 2 diabetes. I want to be around for my grandkids. I need more energy. And you go for it. But set realistic goals, like I've talked about before. I'm even setting this time next year. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to be in not exactly, probably 9 months from now or so? That way I can get down there gradually. I still want to just, as I get older, even lose some more weight, because it's not good to carry a lot of weight, especially as you get older. It might fly when you're younger, but trust me. And so fasting is such an important element of this. And that's why the title is titled The Important Discipline of Fasting, because it can't just be something you do at New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for 20 days or 21 days. It should be a lifestyle. There's seasons of feasting, there's seasons of enjoyment, but then there should be some seasons of fasting, keeping that flesh restrained. And so let me get right to the manuscript, and I'll add some things as we go. As I stated before, you choose. Will it be the pain of discipline or the pain of regret? One yields a sense of extreme fulfillment, the other a lingering sense of defeat. Ironically, we pray to God to heal us when we should also pray for self-discipline to change harmful habits. Fasting is hard because self-denial is hard, and overindulging is not rewarding. I'm sorry, let me reread that. I got the arrow here on the mouse in my way. We pray for self-discipline to change harmful habits is what we should be doing, praying for that. And fasting is hard because self-denial is hard. which is discipline, and indulging and eating too much is not rewarding because there is regret. It becomes a never-ending cycle of defeat unless we break that cycle by choosing discipline over regret as we seek the will of God. Now, let me tell you, as somebody who's, I like the topic of fasting, I don't live in a world where I'm always on a spiritual high. Actually, today, right now, is kind of challenging to come in and record this. I don't really feel like it, but I know when I get through it, I'm going to feel much better. And same thing with fasting. Oh, this isn't working. Why am I doing this? We give up too soon. And the key to remember is even when I don't feel like it, there are rewards at the end of this journey. And we can't be, gauging this by our feelings. That will knock us off track every time. God teaches us through discipline because he loves us. And we are also encouraged to discipline our bodies. We cannot effectively be filled with the Spirit and lack discipline. Our faith is not passive. It's active faith. Romans 6:16 sheds light on this topic. Do you not know that when you present yourself to someone as slaves for obedience, you are slaves of the one you obey, either of sin resulting in death or of obedience resulting in righteousness? We choose who we obey. And I have not mastered this. I still cave into the flesh, just like all of you, but the key is to get back up and keep fighting. So either way, we're slaves, a slave to God, a slave to sin. And self-discipline is a fruit of the Spirit. And according to 2 Timothy 1:7, that will reveal itself in your life as you seek to follow God. So those who say that discipline is legalism are dead wrong. We are called to yield to the Spirit and quench sin. But when we yield to sin, we quench the Spirit. Fleshly appetites are subdued when fasting. Fasting is challenging because the flesh always wants to negotiate with us. It says, can't we meet in the middle? Don't completely remove food. That's too extreme. So, if God wants you to do a fast, your flesh is going to be negotiating. And that's one of my concerns with like low calorie diets and fasting. It can be good, but are we compromising too? I know in some cases I am. In some cases I'm not. It depends really, if you have peace on where God is leading you. Self-control is also required for leadership, as in Titus 1:8. Paul said that a leader must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, and they are self-controlled and disciplined. John Wesley actually required fasting so that his leaders would discipline their appetite rather than allowing their appetites to rule over them. It's been said for centuries that no man who cannot command himself is fit to command another. It's true. There's some good points there. Paul told the Corinthians that he strikes a blow to his body and makes it his slave so that he will not be disqualified from service. We also see the power of fasting in Joel 1:14. Joel 1:14, and I want to make this one available as well. If my people, read this in case of national emergency. I have that book available too as a free download. It doesn't focus on Joel 1:4 necessarily, but it will help in this area of consecrating a fast, calling a sacred assembly, and gathering the elders into the house of God and crying out to God. What does it mean to do that? How can we do that personally, even if our church isn't doing that? So what happened in Joel when they called this fast, and also in the book I recommended, If My People, of course, based on the verse, if my people who are called by my name humble themselves and pray, what is the magnitude of what must be happening to demand this? Well, the magnitude of the situation determined the response. God said, this is so bad that you need to turn back to me with prayer and fasting. So same thing goes today. The same call goes out today, I should say. We are basically saying the flesh got me into this predicament. Now it's time to seek God's mercy and humble myself before him. Obviously, people have overcome challenges without fasting, but fasting adds extra strength, especially when overcoming addictions. Fasting is not a cure-all. It's a spiritual discipline designed to aid in victory. Again, choose the pain of discipline over the pain of regret. Next section, fasting. Fasting, the physical affects the spiritual. Woo, isn't that true? The physical how we treat the body will affect us spiritually as well. Always remember that. Through fasting, our body becomes a servant instead of a master. When Jesus directs us to do something, the outcome is always beneficial, spiritually speaking and physically speaking. Notice he said, when you fast in Matthew 6, it doesn't say if you fast, but when you fast. The Bible also doesn't say when you sin. It says if you sin. And so we like to turn those things around. But clearly Jesus taught on fasting. And so let's think about this for a minute. Can we pray and seek God with all of our heart, with a headache and tight pants and sluggish, lethargic body strung out on our favorite addictive substance like caffeine and sugar? Of course not. Does the way you feel affect your productivity? Going to get my speech going here better. Affect your productivity and the quality of your life. Absolutely, the way you feel affects the productivity and quality of your life. Now, granted, sometimes we don't always feel good and we have to press through those times, but often you can make some changes in your diet and lifestyle that will aid you in this area. Our diet, for example, affects key hormones such as serotonin for relaxation, dopamine for pleasure, glutamate for healthy thinking, and noradrenaline for handling stress. If we allow junk food and addictions to control our attitude and productivity, it will hinder what we do for God. When we're always dealing with stress, anxiety, and sickness, we cannot do as much for God. We will be limited. Granted, there are those who, through no fault of their own, have a debilitating illness. I'm assuming the reader understands that I'm talking to those who can make changes. What you put in your mouth and the mind affect the spirit. And when you feed the spirit, it affects the body and the soul. I'm often asked to pray for panic attacks and angry outbursts and anxiety. And that can be done, and I love to do it. God honors prayer, but are we opening the door to these things by not halting highly addictive things such as caffeine and sugar and opiates and nicotine and alcohol? So we want God to release us, but are we continuing to take things and consume things that keep us bound? Are we renewing our mind by meditating on the word and spending time in prayer? The physical affects the spiritual. There's just really no way around it. And the spiritual, thank God, affects the physical. The better you're doing spiritually, the better you want to do physically. Much of the healing that I've witnessed over the years was the result of renewed stewardship of the body. Hear this loudly, hear this clearly. I believe in a God that heals. We've seen some amazing things, but over the years, the best way to heal the body is to remove the destructive things that are breaking it down, and to add fasting into your life. And I'm not going to go into great detail because I think I'll do it a little bit later, but fasting, the benefits are amazing, from autophagy to stem cell reproduction to, again, lowering mTOR, IGF-1, telomeres on the end of the DNA strands that can begin to elongate again, because as they shrink, that also leads to aging. There's so much here that I'm hoping to maybe tap into that a little bit more. But we also know that emotions such as anger and bitterness and jealousy are toxic to the body. Health also involves healthy emotions. Having a forgiving, loving, joy-filled heart does wonders for the body. Serotonin, for example, is increased when the heart is right. And this critical chemical also is affected by diet and exercise. Isn't that amazing? It's not like, these things don't matter. How you eat and how you take care of your body will also affect serotonin levels and dopamine, all these different things that affect our mood. Again, I'm not suggesting that health should replace God and prayer, right? I'm hoping none of you caught that, or thought that, I should say. It should complement our relationship with the Lord, supplement it. It should not replace it. We should steward the gift of health. No one is perfect, but we are called to discipline our bodies and use wisdom. God does heal miraculously, even in our ignorance, even when we sin, but that shouldn't cause us to neglect our health. With more than 12 million, and that was at the time of the writing of this, I don't know where this is going to be, now, 12 million U.S. children are obese. Wow. And millions more are being malnourished. And that's one of my big concerns with those on food stamps. and limited income is the quality of the food is very poor. And if that's you, I would buy things like beans, let them soak. You can get a lot of beans, a lot of nutrient dense food, sweet potatoes, and you can eat really good, but you have to be strategic. Also, caffeine and soft drinks are the number one drinks for many, including this income bracket. And you really got to get rid of those things. It just deteriorates the body. It's terrible for the body. And all of this junk food is fueling this disease epidemic. Yet we pray for God to heal rather than ask for his help with self-discipline to change harmful habits. What's wrong with this picture? There are multitudes of diseases which have their origin in fullness and might have their end in fasting. Quoting somebody from decades gone by, I don't recall his name, the doctor, there are multitudes of diseases which have their origins in fullness and will have their end in fasting. In other words, lots of diseases are started because we eat too much. And so you can bring that disease to an end by fasting. I'm going to see here when the next section is, to talk a little bit more about autophagy and things like that. When I go in deeper, obviously what I said before in this book, Feasting and Fasting, you can download free. And also for those interested, Help I'm Addicted is really good. Help I'm Addicted, Overcoming the Cravings That Overcome You. All these books right now, church website, westsidechristianfellowship.org, and you can start reading these along with obviously the one I'm doing right now. So let's keep going here. The myth that fasting is bad for you is unfounded and has been disproved numerous times. Be careful when you get your counsel from those who profit from the advice that they are giving you, from drugs to big pharma, even healthcare physicians, even supplements online. I'm thinking about doing a bonus chapter here on supplements, but not getting too crazy about it. But I mean, I'm seeing stuff on Instagram, Twitter all the time, like this will do this, this will do this, this will shred you, this will cut you, this will increase testosterone. Some of those things are, they work, and I can explain how, possibly, but they're making money off it. They're trying to sell you a product. And in the case I never remember to tell you this, I'll say it now, even though it doesn't have to do too much with fasting. As a person who's tried lots of supplements, I mean, from, you name it, creatine to NAD to resveratrol to natural testosterone boosters that work pretty good, to, the protein powders and the whey protein, plant-based protein, collagen, of course, the vitamin E and D supplements, and, lots of different things, coenzyme Q6. I think nothing even comes close, nothing than your diet. Changing your diet, low calories, whole foods, get that weight off, eating God-given foods. That is better than any supplement I've personally ever tried. Nothing competes with fasting. Even all the things I just said, you put those all in one, consume all those in one day, and they will not do the same effect that fasting does and eating. Not too much. Keep your calories under control. Good God-given healthy food. It's amazing. So again, we pray for God to heal us instead of asking for his help with self-discipline. God, I need discipline to change these harmful habits. What's wrong with this picture? Well, let's keep going here. The myth that fasting is bad for you, I know I read this, but I thought you'd like to hear it again, is unfounded and has been disproven numerous times. And as I started my journey with fasting, I realized the most of the critics of fasting have never fasted a day in their life. They've got such bad information. I mean, look at a lot of healthcare physicians. I love healthcare physicians. We have doctors and nurses at our church and good friends of mine. But I also know a lot that are overweight. They don't take care of their body. And hey, just take this statin, just take this blood pressure reducing pill. Just take this Coumadin to thin your blood. Just take this. No. Maybe, I'm a proponent of, if you need medication, get the diet in order first, get your healthy eating habits in order first, get your weight at a good weight first. And then from that foundation, if you need to build on it, then you can. Even, there's some good well, I don't know. I mean, studies are still out, but like rapamycin, I talked about that before. It was found, I think, 1960s or 70s on Easter Island. Works as a good antifungal or antibacterial. It actually, some say it suppresses mTOR, the mammalian target of rapamycin. It's funny. mTOR was named after kind of after that rapamycin that was found. It's natural, and people take that for longevity. A lot of these longevity experts take it. I just don't get too carried away in that because I'm trying to look at how God designed us. And maybe, but even metformin is also fairly natural as well. I think that was taken from a lilac in France, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken though. All this is just coming off the top of my head here. So fasting is not bad for you. I vividly recall the story of a man who had colon surgery, yet he might not have needed it. He could have changed his diet, fasted, and probably healed that area of his, again, disclaimer, fasting doesn't heal. What it does is it gives your body the chance to rest and rejuvenate and let the body heal itself. So I remember this guy, he got out of colon surgery, I don't know if colon cancer, or was it just colon surgery? I don't remember, but the meals the hospital was feeding him, I remember one was a greasy, sloppy Joe right after he woke up from surgery. I'm like, it's just the lack of wisdom has been our downfall, and it still is. And for more on this topic, how the physical affects the spiritual, you can actually go on my YouTube channel or Rumble channel and search for The Doctrine of Man, Sin and the Curse. The Doctrine of Man, Sin and the Curse by Shane Idleman. And I go into more detail on that. But it's been estimated that nearly 75% of U.S. clinical trials in medicine are paid for by private companies who benefit. Bing, 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 bing. Repeat. Did you catch that? See, I told you I start feeling better once I got in here. It's been estimated that nearly 75% of all clinical trials in the U.S. are paid for by the private companies who benefit from them. Folks, we need to use wisdom. You need to be the best doctor you have. And you don't need to know as much as your doctor. I sure don't know as much as mine, but I do know a lot about the human body works and how my body works. And everything from not having to take amoxicillin to removing adenoids and tonsils in our children, and high blood pressure medication, androgel recommended for low testosterone. All these things have been recommended for my family, but we've been able to, at least for now, avoid those things because you learn to doctor yourself, learn what works, what doesn't, and why. And of course, if you need to look to medical advice, you always should do that. Keep your doctor abreast, but also look into high levels of vitamin C and how that affects health, and fasting, how that affects health, getting enough magnesium, potassium, and electrolytes into your body, how that really helps. Get rid of the junk food and the fast food, and watch the changes that'll be made. So we continue here all these false claims by these drug companies, or by food industry. I think when I checked last, a lot of the major food companies are owned by companies that used to or they might still do manufacture cigarettes. Right. And as soon as cigarettes came out, it's bad, and the money plummeted. I remember the tobacco industry in the 70s. I mean, everybody I knew smoked. I actually was denied insurance, I think probably 1920, because they had me down as a smoker. But I never smoked at all. I had secondhand smoke around my aunts, my uncles, my dad, my grandparents. But now those companies are investing into the food companies, and that should tell you something. That's why they'll advertise, eat this children's cereal. Just ignore the harmful GMOs, food colorings, additives, preservatives, and toxins, right? I mean, America, wake up. You are what you eat. Fasting doesn't kill us. Overconsumption and consuming empty food is what kills us. Companies are often driven by revenue, but no one profits from fasting except the person who is fasting. Processed food is cheap and convenient. Just had my son ask me the other day, Dad, why are all these, look at this artificial, we went in, we watched a video on what is in a McDonald's hamburger, right? It's like, why do they do that? So it's simple. And most fast food places do, and any fast food. With fast food, it's all about, especially if they're a corporation, they've got to hit certain numbers. They've got to make, $1.50 per hamburger or whatever it is. And they got to get, as long as it squeaks by the FDA, doesn't matter. We got to, whatever preserves our hamburger so our buns can sit on the shelf for months. Taste, let's get some chemicals in there that'll really affect the taste. You got to have that, I don't care what you say. I can make a pretty good homemade hamburger, but getting it from one of the top chains or chicken sandwiches from one of the top chains, there's something in there. The reason is they usually have like 50 chemicals or ingredients, I should say, in the patties or in the chicken. And it's like a drug. You just have to have more. And they have scientists working for the companies that actually do this. So they want the most addictive food available for the cheapest costs in order for them to make the product. That's why there's a lot of junk in food. It's not about our health at all. It's about the bottom line. And so the bottom line for you is it needs to be about your health. Be strategic, be wise. When was the last time you saw an advertisement for broccoli, blueberries, or kale? Not very often. Disease is often a problem of toxicity, right? Disease is often a problem of toxicity. It means, we're getting toxic in our body by what we consume, ingest, or breathe. And fasting can be the detox solution. Granted, the spiritual health and wholeness of fasting are the main reason, like for Christians would fast for spiritual reasons. And I've actually, in the book I mentioned on fasting, feasting and fasting, I go into a lot more of the spiritual ramifications. This is more of a weight loss book. It's just more focused on health and weight loss, but there's a lot of spiritual aspects in the book itself on, of course, this kind does not come out except by prayer and fasting. Some commentators, they debate on whether that passage should be in there. I believe in Mark, towards the end of Mark. I don't know if it's towards the end of Mark. I don't know exactly where it's at. But I know there's Mark 16, it's questionable and different things just because the manuscripts just disagree. But Jesus said, when you fast, we see that Elijah would fast, Moses would fast, Ezra would fast for protection, Esther would fast for direction and getting to the king. David would fast. They would call a fast, call a sacred assembly. Jesus said, when the bridegroom is here, you're not going to fast, but when I leave, my disciples will fast. Paul was in much fastings. The Didache or Didacte early church writings talk about fasting before baptisms. The early church would fast. If you can read some of Ignatius or Polycarp or Justin Martyr, Ignatius, Irenaeus, there's works on fasting, and it was such an important element of the church. And so the spiritual benefits are huge. Because basically what you're doing is denying your flesh and this appetite that can be good and God-given, but when it's out of control, it's not good. But I feel this desire to eat and consume, but Lord, I need to turn from that and turn to you. So I'm exchanging this appetite for a greater appetite, an appetite with God. However, you don't feel like it sometimes. Sometimes you have to press through. It's very challenging. Dr. J.H. Tilden said, after 55 years of sojourning in the wilderness of medical therapeutics, meaning after 55 years of being a doctor, I'm forced to declare that fasting is the only reliable, specific, therapeutic eliminant known to man. Right, to eliminate disease and to eliminate sickness. It's the only one that really works. Dr. Joel Fuhrman said the body's wondrous ability to self-digest and destroy needless tissue such as fat, tumors, blood vessels, plaque, and other non-essentials, and diseased tissues while conserving the essential tissues like muscle and, of course, vital organs gives the fast the ability to restore youth to the system. That's where that word autophagy comes in. I've talked about before, autophagy. It's a Latin word, means self-consuming. And so the body, instead of consuming your muscle and your heart and your liver and your kidneys, during fasting, it begins to consume tissue that is dead, bad cells, senescent cells. It will also begin to convert fat into fuel through ketone bodies or that are used, converted to fuel for the body. It breaks down the fat as well. And then there was a doctor, his name was Yuri Nikoliv. Yuri Nikoliv, I believe. He's a psychiatrist at the University of Moscow, but this, I believe, is probably back in the 70s or 80s. He treated schizophrenics with water fast for 25 to 30 days. You can research all of this. This was followed by 30 days of eating healthy food, God-given food, and about 70%, this is huge, 70% of his patients remained free from the symptoms for the duration of the 6-year study. The health benefits of fasting are incredible. And what happens with water fasting, you go that long, you're just getting, the deeper, here's the deal. People say, well, how long should I go? Technically you should go till the body tells you it's hungry, but that could be a long time. But the deeper you go, you get past 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, 10 days into water fasting, the deeper you're just going deep now. You're getting eyesight is repairing. Your microbiome has been reset. Old injuries are starting to heal, but it's so hard for many of us to go that long. But that would really work well. Plus, you got to use wisdom. If you're addicted to things, you're on medication, you've got to really research this, talk to your doctor. Most don't recommend any type of long-term water fasting or even a couple of days if you're on medication for obvious reasons. Let's say you're on low blood pressure. It's hard to say. Low blood pressure medication. Fasting lowers your blood pressure. And so you could be getting down to a dangerous level. So always good to keep the physician up to speed with what you're doing. And also, did you know that type 2 diabetes is nearly eliminated with proper diet when you stop fueling the disease and you start fasting? It doesn't have to be a progressive disease. You need to hear that. Type 2 diabetes does not have to be progressive. Make the change today. Download the books at the church website, westsidechristianfellowship.org, and begin your journey of losing weight, right? The addictions, the fasting, the weight loss, all of this can help you hit that goal. Type 2 diabetes, you can reverse it. Look at Dr. Jason Fung and his work, and other doctors. Dr. Hyman, he's got some great podcasts out there. Dr. Jason Fung, of course, Walter Longo, other experts in this area. So the reason fasting is difficult, though, is because you are withdrawing from poisons and addictive substances. That's why it's so hard. Therefore, begin by eliminating junk food and educate yourself. Educate yourself on what works, what doesn't, and why. Drugs, again, we talked about, they do not fix the underlying problem. And this is why many people are chronically sick. They are always medicating and never healing. That's why this is so important. And again, I want to reiterate here, fasting does not heal the body. It gives the body the optimal environment for healing. Fasting is a process that God created. Additionally, God-given food promotes life. Man-created food does not. I gave an example here I've talked about before when my youngest daughter was not breathing well at night, and the physician wanted to remove her tonsils, her adenoids, everything was inflamed. We got to get her to surgery. And so I just took her to prayer, got her off sugar, just only on God-given food. I would take her on a drive each day and have her take a good long nap in addition. So sleep, good night's sleep, healthy food. And then I think within the week, I think it was more like 4 or 5 days, she's breathing well and everything worked out well. Now, not saying there isn't a time and a place for surgery, but we got to run to the great physician before other physicians. Also, we had ear infection that would have been lingering in her ear. That healed as well by taking the season of focusing on health and fitness. And I've had other kids, they've been advised to take amoxicillin, for a tooth infection or strep throat. And we usually pray about it. Give it the night. Lord, what do you want to do? Maybe take some colloidal silver, high dose of vitamin C, different things. And 9 times out of 10 in the morning, the prayer helped, of course, too, but also changing their diet, getting them off sugar, and they feel a lot better. And then there have been other times, I don't think I've taken antibiotic. It's probably been, once or twice in a decade. But not sure when you're listening to this. This is summer 2024. I finally had to take medication for pneumonia and was getting really sick. It wasn't getting better after 5 days, and that really jump-started me. So I'm not totally against these things, but if we're taking too much antibiotics, I mean, the word means antibiotic, against life. And so it will kill all of your good gut bacteria as well. And your immune system will be susceptible. So there's a way to introduce probiotics and prebiotics and things like that. This isn't a book for that, but there is, you got to be strategic when you do these things. So, I have friends who are doctors. I deeply respect them. They're well trained in easing the symptoms, but most are not educated in going to the root problem and fixing it. For example, how many men are told to take androgel for low testosterone, or that was back maybe a couple of years ago, or TRT therapy? There might be a time and place for that, but I've noticed and I've found that most of the time, you lose weight, you begin eating healthy, exercising, avoiding getting rid of alcohol, the sugar, even managing stress and getting good sleep. Boom, your testosterone is going to go from 150 up to 550, 600, just from doing that. Especially if you're, taking vitamin D, you're incorporating some fasting. It's not hard to get these these levels up naturally. And my concern is we take a pill or an injection that really doesn't fix the problem. Because, for example, TRT, what you're doing is you're injecting synthetic into your, usually your hip or buttocks, synthetic testosterone, usually cypionate, propionate, ethionate, and depending on what your doctor wants to do, some are water-based, some are oil-based, and how long it stays in the system. But that's just, okay, my testosterone's low, so let me put in a synthetic testosterone? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Let me find out what's causing this and let me fix that. Now, after all things are looked at and you pray about it, maybe, you might need to take that medication. Again, I think medication can be a blessing. I think doctors are a blessing, but anytime you go to far extremes, you got to come back. So, before the invention of antibiotics, penicillin, everything we've learned in the medical industry, now, we've gone so far to the extreme. Now we want to medicate everything. Let's take a pill for your high blood pressure. Let's take a pill for type 2 diabetes. Let's take a pill for heart disease, when most of the time those can be corrected by fixing and your lifestyle. And even me, I started late in the game. I mean, I abused my body pretty bad, up until I was 30 with steroids and alcohol and bad food. And, I was around a lot of secondhand smoke. And so I don't know how long, I don't know what the ramifications that will have on my health, but for the rest of my life, what I can do, I'm going to try to do. And I remember too, a few years ago, a doctor warned me about my high blood pressure, and he wanted to send me home with 2 different types of high blood pressure medication. So before leaving, I asked, hey, did you happen to use the large cuff, large cuff for men? And they didn't. And so when he did, the blood pressure came back normal. So see, we have to be careful here. And I remember in the office of a cardiologist, they had a big sign by the pot of coffee: don't consume before a stress test. Well, how about be careful anytime? I mean, it's because they know cortisol causes stress. Caffeine is a central nervous stimulant. It's a drug, but it's hard to apply what we know, right? We love good news about bad habits. I've heard Dr. Alan Goldhammer say that a lot. We love bad news about good habits. So what we need are more physicians who understand how the body works and that can help us. We also need to go to God's word and not quick fixes or buying these products or these pills or all these different things. We need to go to God's word. We need to incorporate fasting into our life. If you're going to use supplements, okay, just maybe a few here and there, research them, know how they affect the body, but nothing is going to work as well as a good, healthy diet along with prayer and fasting.